Some stories feel like they belong to a different world. They're woven from faith and legend, passed down through so many generations that they seem more like myth than history. We hear them, and we appreciate them for the powerful stories they are, but part of us keeps them at arm's length, separated by the centuries. But once in a very long while, the ground beneath our feet shifts. The past reaches out, not as a story, but as a physical, unexplainable fact. A group of men, armed with all the skepticism and knowledge of their time, break open a tomb expecting to find the dust of a legend. Instead, they come face to face with a mystery that challenges everything we think we know about the line between life and death. This is the story of what they found inside the tomb of Saint Cecilia, and the question it has left for us to wrestle with ever since. To truly grasp the shock of the discovery in 1599, we have to travel back 13 centuries before it, to the world that created the story of Cecilia. 3rd century Rome was not the Rome we see today, filled with tourists and Vespas. It was the heart of a sprawling, often brutal empire, a place where new ideas, especially religious ones, could be seen as a dangerous threat to the established order. Cecilia was a young noblewoman, part of the city's aristocracy, who had embraced the then-outlawed Christian faith. This was not a casual affiliation. It was a choice that put her in direct opposition to the power of the Roman state, and the punishment for such defiance was death. The legend of her execution is where her story takes on its almost supernatural quality. It wasn't a simple, swift end. The authorities, perhaps wanted to make an example of her without a public spectacle, first attempted to execute her by locking her within the calendarium, the steam room, of her own family's bathhouse. They stoked the furnaces to their absolute limit, intending to suffocate and essentially boil her alive in the intense, searing heat. The story goes that after a full day and night, when the guards unsealed the room, they found her not only alive but completely unharmed, reportedly not even sweating. Frustrated and enraged, they ordered a direct execution. An executioner was sent to her home to behead her, but Roman law, in a strange quirk of legalistic mercy, stipulated that an executioner was only allowed 3 swings of the axe. He struck her neck once, then a second time, and a third. The wounds were horrific, but her head was still attached. Legally, his job was done. He was forbidden from striking again. He fled, leaving Cecilia mortally wounded but alive. For 3 days, the legend says, she lingered, comforting her friends and giving her possessions to the poor before she finally passed. This was a powerful, dramatic story that the Church preserved for over 1,000 years. It was a testament to faith conquering all, but it was still just a story. 1,300 years. It's a length of time that's almost impossible for the human mind to truly comprehend. Let's try to put it into perspective. After Cecilia was buried in a simple cypress coffin in the catacombs, the entire Roman Empire, the entity that executed her, collapsed into dust. The Dark Ages swept over Europe. Charlemagne was crowned Holy Roman Emperor. The Vikings sailed from their frozen shores to terrorize the continent. The Crusades were fought. The Black Death wiped out nearly half of Europe's population. The Renaissance bloomed, giving us the art of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. Columbus sailed to a new world that Cecilia's contemporaries never even dreamed existed. Entire civilizations rose and fell. All of that history, all of that human struggle and achievement, unfolded while that one coffin lay silent and undisturbed in the damp Roman earth. Now, let's consider the unyielding laws of biology. Decomposition is not a theory. It is a fundamental process of nature. When a living organism dies, it begins to break down. Soft tissues, the things that make us recognizable, our skin, our muscles, our organs, are the first to go. They putrefy, they liquefy. They are consumed by bacteria. Over a century, let alone a millennium, a body returns to its basic elements. In the damp, non-sterile environment of a crypt, this process is even more relentless. Any scientist, any doctor, any undertaker from any period in history would tell you the same thing. After 13 centuries, the absolute most anyone could hope to find would be a scattering of brittle, discolored bones and perhaps some teeth. The person, the physical vessel of their life, would be gone completely, reclaimed by the earth. That is the absolute, inescapable rule. It's what should have been in that coffin. There was no rational, scientific reason to expect anything else. It was a closed case, a settled matter of nature. The only question was how much of the skeleton, if any, would have survived the immense passage of time. We arrive in Rome in the year 1599. The city is the epicenter of the Counter-Reformation. The Catholic Church, challenged by the rise of Protestantism, is actively seeking to reaffirm its history, its saints, and its miracles. It's in this climate that a renovation project at the Basilica of Saint Cecilia in Trastevere leads workers to the forgotten tomb. The Pope, Clement VIII, understood the potential significance of this discovery. He didn't allow it to be a chaotic affair. He ordered a formal witness exhumation, assembling a commission of the highest integrity. This included the deeply devout Cardinal Sfondrati, several respected physicians who were men of science, and a promising young sculptor named Stefano Maderno, who was brought along to document the findings with his artistic skill. Imagine the scene in the crypt. The air is heavy with the dust of centuries. The light from flickering torches casts long, dancing shadows on the ancient stone walls. The small, official party gathers around the simple, blackened cypress coffin. There's a palpable sense of anticipation, a mixture of historical curiosity and religious awe. The workers carefully pry at the ancient lid. The sound of cracking would echoes in the silence. As the lid is lifted, the witnesses brace themselves for the musty, foul odor of the grave, the smell of decay. But that is not what happens. According to every single eyewitness account, the first thing that emerged from the coffin was a delicate, sweet fragrance, like a field of blooming lilies and roses. It was a detail so strange, it was disorienting. Then they looked inside. The men fell silent. Some dropped to their knees. What lay before them was not dust. It was not a jumble of bones. It was the body of a young woman, lying on her side as if in a deep and peaceful sleep. Her dress, though ancient, was still intact. Her skin, though pale, was smooth and unblemished. They could see the delicate blue veins beneath the skin of her arms, and on her neck, starkly visible, were the dark, deep gashes from an executioner's axe. It was a sight that defied all logic, all reason, all science. It was impossible, and yet it was right there in front of them. In that crypt stood Stefano Maderno. For a modern audience trying to understand this event, he is perhaps the most important witness of all. He was not a theologian tasked with interpreting a miracle, nor a doctor trying to rationalize a medical anomaly. He was an artist, a sculptor. His entire life and training were dedicated to the honest observation of the physical world, of form, of texture, of anatomy, of reality. His job was to see things as they truly were and translate that truth into stone. What he saw that day in the coffin so profoundly shook him that it would define not only his career, but his entire life. He had been brought there to make a simple sketch, but he left with a vision burned into his mind. He immediately set to work on what would become his masterpiece, a life-size marble statue of Saint Cecilia. What makes this statue one of the most compelling pieces of evidence in art history is its shocking realism and its rejection of convention. In the dramatic Baroque era, saints were almost always depicted in idealized, heroic poses, looking piously toward heaven. Maderno did the complete opposite. He sculpted exactly what he had seen. His statue shows Cecilia lying on her right side, her face turned away from the viewer, her head gently bent. It's a position of incredible vulnerability and quiet intimacy, as if you have just stumbled upon her in a moment of sleep. Her hands are delicately carved, with one hand holding out a single finger and the other holding out three, a subtle symbol of her faith in the Trinity. And most importantly, he carved her neck with unflinching honesty, showing the deep, unmistakable gashes from the axe wounds. This was not an artist's interpretation. This was a physical report, a police sketch rendered in 3 dimensions. It's a piece of forensic art, a permanent, tangible record from a man whose only job was to show the truth. Looking at a statue in Rome today is an unsettling experience. You're not just looking at a work of art. You're looking at an eyewitness account carved in marble. So what do we do with this story? How do we, in our modern world, process a documented event that seems to so thoroughly violate the fundamental laws of nature? The conversation inevitably splits into 2 paths: science and faith. And what's fascinating is that both paths lead to conclusions that are, in their own way, extraordinary. The scientific explanation centers on an extremely rare natural phenomenon known as saponification, or more commonly, grave wax. Under very specific anaerobic conditions, a lack of oxygen, cool temperatures, and high moisture, the fats in the human body can undergo a chemical reaction, converting into a hard, waxy, soap-like substance. This substance, called adipose here, can effectively encase the body, preserving its shape and form for centuries, sometimes even millennia. It is a known, though exceptionally uncommon, process. It offers a rational, scientific foothold for understanding how a body might not turn to dust. But does it fully answer questions raised by the eyewitnesses of 1599? The official reports, including those from the physicians present, noted not just the body's preservation, but its supposed flexibility, its lifelike color, and most strangely, the sweet, floral scent that emanated from the coffin. Grave wax typically has a cheesy or ammoniac odor, and it results in a hard, brittle form, not something described as supple. Here, the scientific explanation begins to feel strained. It can explain the preservation of form, but it struggles to account for these other, more perplexing details. And so we are left in that unsettling, fascinating space between what we know and what we don't. Was it a 1 in a billion chemical anomaly that produced effects that have never been precisely replicated since? Or did those men in the crypt witness something that truly lies beyond our current scientific understanding? The story of Saint Cecilia endures not because it provides a clear answer, but because it asks such a profound question. It's a moment in history where science, art, and faith all converge on a single impossible object and leave us to wonder,